Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is a CE, so thank you for participating in this. So Corey is signing it over there. We'll send it around, or we'll put it over there. Just look, make sure you get your CE. We've been trying to get a real life licensed appraiser in for a while, and timing hasn't made it, but I feel like we're getting more and more questions or issues or stuff pop up that I'm trying to answer, and so this will be really good. She's going to run through a couple talking points we have, and then I think it's good. Everyone's got some weird random niche question that they've experienced that we can ask an opinion. So this is Crystal Manchester, and you've been appraising for
13 years.
13
yeah.
years. So excited to hear what she has to say, answer questions we have. So thank you, Crystal, and I'll let you get going.
Okay. Well, my name is Crystal Manchester, and yes, I've been doing this for 13 years. So I'm a certified residential real estate appraiser. And let's see, aside from this, I'm a fitness instructor, and I recently became an empty nester, so I'm really excited about that. And that's really all there is to know about me, all things appraising. So first of all, let's just kind of dive into what an appraisal is. It's mainly just like an unbiased opinion of market value. We're looking at data, we're looking at market trends and what buyers and sellers are doing out there. And we're just coming up with an unbiased opinion as best as we all can, right? So let's see what else. We've got certain types of appraisals that I specialize in are conventional FHA. There are VA appraisals. I am not a VA appraiser, so if you guys have those questions, I'll try to answer those as best as I can, but I am not as familiar with that. And then I do appraisals for cash buyers, estates, divorces, just really all kinds of things out there. And then I also do measuring services. So if you guys are listing a property and you want to find out what the square footage is, if you have any question at all, just give us a call. Any appraiser can do that. They usually just charge a small fee and come out and give you a more accurate idea of what that square footage is like, because it could bust a deal. You could make more money, you could make less money, all kinds of things that you could run into, especially when you see like a converted garage, differences like that. So always check your property sketch and see what that looks like. Go look at your garage on the inside. Hey, is there a mechanical closet? I didn't see that on the sketch. Like, maybe we should get this measured, because it can make a big deal. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into some of the ideas that we have about red flags during appraisals. There are so many, right? So one of the biggest ones, let's see, maybe that we don't meet value, So here we go. You guys would maybe consider that one a red flag. Maybe not me as much, but let's see. How would we tackle this idea? So when you guys decide how you're valuing a property, how do you decide that you're listing the property? What do you guys do? Like,
look at the price per square foot.
Yeah. Yeah, is that really any other people? That's it. Okay. Well, that's really good, because it's not good, but also when you meet me out there and I'm like, hey, this seems like maybe it's at the top of the market. Hey, where did you decide how you were pricing this property? Was it the seller that decided what that price was going to be and they were just dead set on that price, or was it that you guys came up with this idea of what, based on your market data? And so then you'll hand me your CMA of your best comparables, and I'll be like, oh, okay, so the house is 3,000 square foot, but you gave me a 1,500 square foot house but it sold for 200 a square foot. But that's really not a direct comparable for us. And so I think maybe, just really looking at the data and saying, okay, is this really a proper substitution? Would a buyer that wants to buy this 3,000 square foot house, would they really be on the market for that 1,500 square foot house? Probably not, So there are those things. And then we've got red flags such as like property defects, deferred maintenance, little things we could run into, like biggest ones being the paint, peeling paint. We've got, water intrusion, maybe some mold in the mechanical closet. Let's see, what else? Any other things you guys have run into that you're like, oh, that was a new one for me?
How do you guys look at potential foundation issues?
Okay, so not just because a home has cracks doesn't mean that we're going to require a structural engineer. there is typical movement within most markets in this area. And so anything that's really atypical, I would consider maybe that you could stick the penny through, a crack that you could stick a penny through. And then, if we just see some on the outside and then we come on the inside and there's not really any stress marks at the windows or the doors, there's no sticking doors, then I don't worry about it too much. I might just say, hey, it's typical, but also I encourage your buyer to go get an inspection just in case there might be any problems that arise, just to kind of cover myself, cover you guys. But there are those times when we do need to have somebody come out. Now, I'm sure you guys work with somebody that comes out, maybe like Oklahoma Foundation Solutions or Triton, that maybe comes out for free. So I always kind of just suggest those. I don't always require that it be a structural engineer. So that's just me. I know other appraisers do, which maybe costs $300, $350. I'm not exactly sure. But that's how I handle them personally. And also it doesn't break a deal. Like you're protecting, you're protecting the home, and the mortgage company has to protect their asset. So we're not trying to ruin your day by, requiring those things. It's just a little checklist that we have to go off of. So, yes, foundation issues are a red flag. Let's see, what else? When you guys maybe place the property on the MLS and you say, appraisal measurement of, whatever, 3,000 feet. And then I'm like, well, hey, where is that appraisal? Where did you get that? And then you're like, well, a listing, 8 years ago said that. Well, but you don't even have anything to back it up. So, just red flags like that, make sure that you have the data to back up what you're putting out there for us. And let's see, what other kinds of things do you guys run into on, yeah.
What about the condition of the roof? After the roofs that are 20 years old and they replaced it.
Yeah, so I'm not a roof expert, so I do my best, but I don't require it unless you guys, I might meet you at a property and you're like, oh, we're getting a new roof, or the buyer's agent, or the listing agent might say, hey, we're getting a new roof on Tuesday. And I'm like, well, I didn't need to hear that, because now I have to come back and I charge the buyer, an additional fee, because I have to write another report and I have to get the paperwork from you. If it doesn't look like it's a bad roof and it's not crusty shingles and all the things, don't even mention it. We don't need to know that. Like, we don't need to know it. If there are shingles popped off the roof and stuff and we can visibly see that, then I might say, hey, like, we should probably have a roof inspector come out and check this.
You don't go and say, I'm going to value this home differently because this roof is...
Correct. Because don't you expect that your house is going to have a functioning roof and it would be insurable and marketable? So everybody expects that. So it doesn't necessarily value it more. And especially when people are like, hey, they paid for that out of pocket. Unfortunately, it's just one of those costs to upkeep a home. So yeah, go ahead.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
I've shown like 5 houses and 5 condos in Founders Tower.
Okay.
How do they determine the square footage of that? Because I've been told something different by every person I've talked to.
Because that's the round one, yes? That's why I stay away from that one. Yeah. So on a condo, we measure from the interior portion only. So it should just be interior measurements only. It should not be any, you're not adding any veneer whenever you're measuring for the condo. So,
How was that?
yeah.
Spin from outside the building?
Anybody else run into anything that they've seen? Yeah.
What are the rules on vaulted ceilings in like an upstairs room on like the height? Is it 5 foot, 7 foot, percentage?
So are you talking about whenever it comes down, maybe, okay, so I'm like 5'2", and and so what I do is I'll just go stand and then I just shoot the laser across, and if I can't stand any further, then that's where I stop at. And so I will say, here's your ceiling, and then it comes down here, but the walls actually come down here. So I measure the part that's above 5 feet, and I count that as square footage, and then I also list what's under 5 feet. And unfortunately, you know, I'm not making a line item adjustment for that additional square footage, but we do list it as non-GLA, which is non-gross living area. So,
And
yeah.
do you give a value?
I do not give that value. Now, I may give something value in a sense that it would be square footage. For instance, like somebody made a bonus room above a garage, and you have to walk out into the garage and then go in a door and go up some stairs that would have been attic stairs, and then it's not accessible through the interior of the property. You have to go through the garage, which is non-heated and cooled space, and it's not finished to similar quality as the main structure. And so I would give that room a value, but I wouldn't list it on the square footage.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went into one yesterday for a listing appointment,
Uh-huh.
and it has a back sunroom, 351 square feet. It is bricked in, it is got windows, it's got carpet like the rest of the house, but it is on a window unit.
Okay. So those are tricky. Where is it at?
Southwest Oklahoma City.
Okay. Well, that market is typically, you know, that might be more typical. If that was in Edmond and, you know, Rose Creek, it's probably not going to be typical. So I kind of take those case by case, but also, you know, does it have the patio flooring? You know, does it slope down, or did it have a new slab? Are the walls still, are they bricked? Are they painted? You know, what does it look like? Does it feel like the same quality as the interior of the house? I think it's probably safer to bet that that isn't, and that an appraiser might separate that out, but they would give it value. They would say, here, we've got this 400 square foot sunroom. We're just gonna make a different line item down here.
If you take the door off that goes from the living room to said sunroom, does that make a difference?
Possibly. Again, this is just kind of like, that's such a hard question, because is it a double door? Is it a single door? You know, without seeing photos, it's really hard to tell you one way or the other, but I would always err on the side of probably not, and that way you're safe there, because you are gonna get credit for that, just maybe not in that square footage.
If you valued it at half of what you thought the rest of the house was worth as far as square footage, is that
Probably not. So that would be more like, you have to have market evidence to say, hey, this sunroom is worth this much. So usually we kind of do that by like a match pair. You know, say you have, you know, a Roscommon neighborhood where you can really find houses that are all the same, but one house has or two houses have a sunroom, and they sold for X amount of dollars higher. You know, they sold for $5 per square foot higher than all the ones without it. Then I would be able to extract and say, hey, that this sunroom is worth, you know, this extra amount of money, and I would be able to support that. I can't just say, oh, this one has a sunroom, and I don't have any other comparables to support that.
you wouldn't ever just give it 0?
Actually, I do. Sometimes I do, because I can't support it, and anything that I do has to be supported. And then also, you know, there might be luxury homes that maybe you have, I don't know, a cabana, a pool, you know, all the things, but one house has just a pool and not the cabana. And, you know, it's like, what does the buyer expect in that market? And it's hard to determine, you know, your quality pool versus my quality of pool and all the things. And so it just becomes additional like fluff for the appraisal, and we can't really support it whenever you've got these custom things, and we don't always make the adjustments, unfortunately. We really do have to be able to prove what we're doing. Yeah. Did you have your hand up again?
Mine was really the same thing.
Oh, okay, the sunroom.
They took the door out, they
Yeah.
had the windows, they had the floor matched to the rest of the house, they had the brick coming in from the attic.
Well, that sounds different.
But the appraiser,
Yeah.
because they left the brick veneer from the side of the home,
Okay.
it wasn't finished. And they gave us no credit for it. I was like, well, the brick looked good.
It can look good, right? Yeah.
They hung a TV on the
Okay.
why would you put sheetrock up to
hang the TV up. I think that is just an appraiser preference. We don't have black and white rules, and so it's kind of subjective to however, which is crazy, right? I know, it is, it's crazy. And then we've got people who have been in the profession for 40 years that have one idea, and then we have some newer people like me that maybe say, I can see that, you know, and so it really just depends. But in your case, I would say, yeah, I probably would have counted that if it was in Midwest City, and yeah, and people need space, and most of the houses are small and they value that extra space, then I'd say, hey, yeah, the market reacted to this. They, you know, it was 2 days on the market. They thought it was great, and then I would just count it in the square footage. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a newer agent, so this might be a basic question.
No, it's okay.
If you guys overvalue a property, what happens to you?
Now, who would think that we were overvaluing?
Well, say, for example, you added some of the stuff he's talking about. It's tough to support. Like, what happens if you did that?
So, would you think maybe more in the lines of like for a transaction that would be with a mortgage person, or like me pre-listing appraisal that is telling you what to list it for?
Well, like if you go with the mortgage, for example, and they feel like you overvalue the property compared to what they want to fund or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I was wondering what happens.
Yeah.
Like, what's the downside for you all if you do give it a higher value than they think?
I mean, obviously we could get in trouble too, right? But an underwriter might send out comps like say, hey, why didn't you use XYZ comps? And so, hi.
I'm gonna, sorry, not to throw you off.
No, it's okay.
I think, because no one's gonna know if it's overpriced.
Right.
Adjustments,
Yeah.
sometimes you can get flagged for having too large of adjustments.
Too large of adjustments, yes.
So I was gonna show you what that means. That's
Oh,
what
nice.
might get flagged in an appraisal.
Yeah.
You guys know.
Yeah, and so the underwriter might come along and just say, hey, they've got a thing called collateral underwriting, and it's a database of all of this data over several years, and they've collected on, you know, what most people say that this condition of the home is, and this one, and so, you know, if they think I've overvalued it, they're gonna say, hey, why didn't you use these that were lower? Most of the time when I look at them and I have to go in and explain why I didn't use those, I look at the photos, I'm like, oh, well, that was easy. Why didn't I use it? You know, like, okay, that was easy. So I don't think that anything, you know, comes back on us to say, hey, now you need to readjust your value. We do get reconsiderations of value for the times whenever you guys might think, or even the mortgage lender thinks that we are coming in under value, under what, you know, the list price is or the contracted value is, and to consider other comparables. We do get that, but as far as, you know, like a slap on the wrist or anything, probably not in that way if we were following our ethical rules of USPAP. Oh, you've got one. Is it mine?
Jennifer Wright?
Okay. Hopefully she did good.
Yeah, Jennifer Wright.
Oh, Jeff. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to PDF. That's annoying me, sorry. I was hoping to squeeze more of it on there. I don't know if you were gonna go through the like adjustment process or not, or.
I can, if that's what you guys would like me to do. I definitely can. If you want to pull up that page, yeah, we can do right here. Is this? All right, so here's what like your typical report. Are you familiar with what a report looks like so far, or?
I've seen a couple.
Okay.
I don't know the like specific line items that are added. Or
Yeah. Okay, so here we have, this would be your subject. It's always going to be on this side. And then we can have 3 comparables, and then maybe additional comparables might be on another page. So it may be just depending on where the appraiser put it. It might be in there, it might not be. So they might put some listings and whatever to show what the market trend is based on the requirements of their lender, or just kind of what they thought, you know, was relevant. So here we are, and then we've got, here's your square footage. So when I'm talking about, you know, here is your square footage, and then maybe I might stick a sunroom down here. That might be just an amenity, but they didn't label anything as amenities, so that's not really relevant here. So we would make an adjustment here. We've got all these here, and I'm not exactly sure what this person did specifically, but they might say, hey, I'm going to adjust these comparables, the square footage, at $80 a square foot for differences in the square footage because you're removing the land from the value because it's not the improvement. It's the improvement itself that we're adjusting. We're not adjusting any land. So that's why it's not 160 a foot that we're adjusting at. So then you might see different values right here, you know, like to here, here, and then you come down here and we've got these net and gross adjustments. And so these really just explain how similar our comparables are to our subject. You know, like this one has 0 adjustments. So obviously it's really similar, 1614 square feet. It seems like it was in similar condition, similar age, like similar lot size. This is probably your best indicator of value right here. Now, maybe it wasn't as nice, and so you're like, hey, this one was actually really close too, and it's much nicer, and it's at 282, so I'm gonna make, you know, this idea of moving my value up, maybe kind of in between or something, but giving these two the most weight because they're the most similar. And then we've got this one over here that's 18.8% of your net and gross adjustments, and so that's not really considered the same. Now, I get this a lot of, well, hey, I've got, let's see, this one's not a huge value range, but maybe you have one at 300,000 and then the rest are at 260, 265. And they're like, but why didn't you just value it at 300? You had this, you know, this range. Well, again, you need to look at how similar was it? And were we just checking a box to put that in there? You know, it wasn't just because we considered it most relevant. It may have been that we had to find one larger. There was a lack of comps. We only had 3 comps, so there it is, you know. Yeah, so any other questions on maybe what this looks like? Yeah.
The condition, the C3, 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 I see that those are the same. So C1, is that brand new construction?
Yes, so that's brand new construction. And if you go, is this, yeah, go.
It's not touch, I wish.
Yeah, that's okay. Go this way, like up, sorry. I'm sorry, not down. Down, sorry, that way. Okay, keep going. There's gonna be some definitions, yeah. And so you can always look at that whenever you're, if you're confused about what that means in a report, it may be at the end, I don't know. Right here. So it's gonna tell you in these conditions and definitions, it's gonna tell you what the quality, so there's gonna be a Q on there and a C on there, and it'll tell you what the quality ratings are and what the condition ratings are. And say like, okay, you know, a Q1, that's gonna be like, I don't know, Michael Jackson's fun house, you know, like nobody has this house. And then, you know, a Q4 might be, I don't know, like a Tabor home or a, you know, just like a more builder grade average. They're, you know, big box builders. And then, you know, so you just have the varying differences of quality, which we can also make adjustments for because sometimes we have a lack of comps and you just have to have whatever the best available data is to you. But yeah, the condition is up there. So C1 is new condition. And then C2, we might mark it as a C2. You may see that sometimes. And it's a new construction, like, oh, nobody's ever lived here before. If it's 2 years old, then we automatically mark it as a C2. It doesn't mean I'm making an adjustment for it. I may say, hey, even though that was a C2, it's not been occupied before, consider it similar. But there are some items that are older, like the roof is now older. The mechanical systems are now older. So it, you know, it's mainly just a rating thing for lending purposes. But I hope that helps you kind of determine what that is. But always look in the definitions if you ever have any questions. Yeah.
And then there was a percentage of adjustment
Mhm.
there. Isn't there like I feel like I heard this last time we had somebody talking about
Yeah.
this. It was like over like 25% adjustment, then it triggers like some kind of red flag
Yeah.
for people or something like that.
Yeah, so our gross adjustments, it used to. Now they don't anymore. They don't, I still state it just because it's, you know, like some people haven't gotten past that. So I still say, you know, hey, I exceeded net and gross adjustments by this amount of, you know, due to lack of comparables or, you know, the subject's like superior condition compared to all the other comparables around the neighborhood. Yeah, it's a thing, but also it's not going to be a huge deal on our end if that happens. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Yeah. So I don't think that that's going to like bust your deal or anything. If you see that on the report, then don't. It's not like the appraiser did something wrong. They just whatever they had available to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what some underwriters might.
Yeah, they might flag that. And then throw us new comparables like, hey, why didn't you use these?
And a frustrating part is like this comparable one right here, this first column right here, the comparable one, is a zero adjustment, which again, that means the appraiser thinks this is as close to the same property as you're gonna get. But you might really like this third comparable better, but they had to adjust it 18%. So the appraiser is gonna say, that's not as good of comp. This one's really good, even though it hurts you.
Yeah, and it's new construction. So these two are same condition. So I'm probably going to go, and maybe your contract price is $280. I'm not personally going to bust a deal over like $2,000 if I can help it. Yeah, because it's silly, and you think about what that costs the buyer over the course of the loan. It's pennies. It doesn't matter. And so I personally would just say, hey, like we're there. It's fine. Yeah, we're there. But that's just me. I'm nice, so use me. Okay. Yeah.
Could you walk us like through like for a typical like 2,000 square foot home, or for example, whatever home you choose, like do you start with you're gonna go back, you're looking for comps between 2,200 and 1,800 square feet, or like
Yeah.
how much work us from like in to outwards.
Okay.
Because like I go to MLS and I'm trying to do my comps, and I'm just kind of curious. I want to try and do comps that are similar to what an appraiser did.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm like, well, this is a 4-bedroom home. Sometimes a bigger home, there's a wider range of people that would live in this home versus like someone in a, that 1,500, 1,600
Right.
home probably isn't really gonna be in like the 1,800 square foot home. So I feel like it's a bigger house. Maybe.
Sure. I'll get you. Yeah.
Ties in with this question.
Uh-huh.
I've always said that comps, if there's comps available in that neighborhood,
Mhm.
like those are the comps that you need to use or get priority. Versus
Yes.
going a neighborhood or two away. So if you can kind of touch on
Yes. So obviously you want to proximity. Yeah. I get a lot like, hey, I've got this house and it's in, I don't know, Lone Oak, but here's your comps. They're from Rose Creek. Like there's plenty in Lone Oak. I'm going to stick over here, just because yours was updated. Sure. Okay. So you said, what was your question again?
How to identify comps.
How to identify comps. Okay. Yes. So say your house is 2,000 feet. Okay. I would probably start with, I'm going to say, 10% to start. If there's a lot of comps, say I have 20 comps in the neighborhood and, it seems pretty easy, then I'm going to do that. But say I only have 5 comps and really I've got 2 outliers. One, has a pool, my subject doesn't, and this other had no carpet and it was a foreclosure, and so I've got these small amount of range. I'm going to broaden my scale here and say, okay, if I broaden the square footage range, am I going to find more comps? No, I didn't either there. So I'm going to expand into near competing neighborhoods. So it's just think about starting small and then going out from there. I'm probably not as likely to go, worst case scenario, like 25%, but it's a lot easier to have a bigger range when you're in that 6,000 square foot range, versus a 1,500 square foot house. You're not gonna buy, you wouldn't pick a 900 square foot house to value that at because the price per foot looks good. You're gonna pick one that is a substitute. So always just think of yourself in that. Like, would I choose this if I'm looking for this house? Do I want this house or, something similar? So that's how I think is best. Yeah.
Can I rephrase that one more?
Sure.
I'm a complete idiot. So
No.
let's go back down to
Okay.
let's say like 1,800 square feet.
Okay.
I get lost and I start trying to look at comparables. I'm like, well, here's a 1,900 square foot home and here's like a 1,700 square foot home. I'm like, I feel like these are 2 different buyers. It's like really weird because I live in my Lone Oak.
Okay.
We're a good example there.
Okay. I don't personally think that that's too far off to me. Yeah, I don't think that that's too far off. to expand your range. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, my house is 1,600 feet. I am only going to look at 1,600 feet houses because that's, I mean, what does it feel like when you go in? You can go in a 1,600 square foot house and it feels tiny. You know, it might be built in, you know, the 80s or, you know, and have tiny rooms and everything's separated. And then you can go in another 1,600 square foot house and it's an open concept and it feels really big. So, you know, just how does it feel too? So, yeah.
What's your average adjustment for like a bedroom? Say you have a 2,000
Yeah.
square foot 3-bed and a 2,000 square foot 4-bed. There's really, for whatever reason, not a lot of comps. So
Yeah.
what's a good ballpark like for us when we're talking to the seller?
Okay. 3 and 4 beds, I don't think that there's a huge market reaction for, possibly. There might be, you know, because there might be, hey, I need 4 bedrooms. I have kids. You know. But as far as what that value is, it's usually not a big difference in value when you're looking at comps. I see a bigger range in value from a 2-bedroom or, you know, even a 1-bedroom, crazy, to that 3 and 4 bedroom range. You know, just like there's not a huge difference between the 5-bedroom, you know, versus the 4-bedroom. So I consider that as square footage anyways, so I'm not going to adjust anything usually unless I have data to back it up, but most of the time I would say most appraisers don't adjust for differences in the bedroom count unless it's a 2-bedroom house and my my subject is a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom, but I didn't have many comps and so I have a 2-bedroom and I can say, oh, you could definitely tell that this one sold for less, so I'm going to adjust that up and give that bedroom some value because that isn't really a substitutable house. So does that help you?
So the overall square footage,
Yes.
when you're talking about 3 and 4 beds specifically.
Yes.
So if you're pricing a 3-bedroom house, the comps are 4.
Uh-huh.
Really, you don't have to make an adjustment as long as the square footage is really similar.
Yeah, and if I have a 3-bedroom house and all my comps are 4, then I'm going to try to find a 3-bedroom house just to say like there wasn't this huge fluctuation in the market whenever there, you know, 3-bedroom versus that 4-bedroom. I may have to leave the neighborhood and find that competing neighborhood that's, you know, within that somewhat expanded market. I may do that, and I may throw it in on, like, here's the 1 through 3. I may throw it in on 4, 5, or 6 and just say, hey, I just showed you this just to show what the market's doing. But I'm not going to weight it all towards that. So, yeah.
What about converting a garage?
In terms of bathrooms,
Okay, so bathrooms I would make adjustments for.
so what kind of adjustment?
So it really would depend on the type of house. Say you have a house in Midwest City we were talking about earlier, maybe a small home that you have, you know, typically 1 bathroom to 2 bathrooms. I'm going to make adjustments, you know, based on what I can tell from the market. It may be, depending on the quality of the house, it may be $5,000. It may be probably around $5,000, maybe for a half bathroom, maybe $1,500, maybe $2,000, $2,500. It just kind of depends on what the market is telling you. And then on a luxury home, let's say, you know, the cost to replace that bathroom is going to be much greater than $5,000. So I may say $20,000 because, you know, that's a $100,000 bathroom in some markets. And then also, that being said, in that luxury market, there might be a house that, you know, most of the houses have, let's say 6 bathrooms, okay? Crazy. So then we've got some comparables and they've got 9 and 10 bathrooms. Well, isn't there like a diminishing return at some point? Like, okay, is this just like another bathroom, you know? And so I wouldn't even adjust for a bathroom at that point. I'm not gonna take away, I'm not gonna add to anything because what does it matter? The market expects this, they got it, and anything from there is just whatever. Okay, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was gonna ask, what about a garage conversion? Do you try to find other houses that
Oh, yeah.
have a garage conversion?
Yes, because the market reacts differently to maybe a garage conversion. You know, I personally would want a garage, but there are people who it doesn't matter. They want the space. And so Midwest City. I'm sorry I keep using that, but that Midwest City, Del City area, that is really common there, where you see the converted garage because they're really looking for space, and they have growing families. That that's normal there. So comps are usually really easy. If that happened like in your Lone Oak area, like it's probably not as common, and it might be a problem.
But you're still looking for the consistency of
Yes.
finishes.
Yes.
Garage to the house.
Yes, definitely looking for the consistencies. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily counted as the square footage, and we may even put on there like a cost to cure it to come back to a garage space. Like we don't give it value, but this is what it would cost to return it back to its garage state, because it wasn't really finished out very well to begin with. Yeah.
So like that, for that example, if we're comping a house that had a converted garage,
Uh-huh.
would you prefer us to go a little bit further out to find other homes that have had the garage
Yes.
versus trying to make an adjustment for something in the same neighborhood?
Yeah, I would typically do that.
We're talking 90 days.
Oh, yeah. So we have some different guidelines there with like an FHA, maybe a VA appraisal. They want us to stick within that 90 days. It's not always possible, especially right now. I mean, there's not a lot of sales. We're just, trying to do the best that we can. Did I go over? Okay. No. Okay, we're good. We're just trying to do the best that we can. So it's really whatever is available to you. I may only have one that sold a year ago, which tells me that it's not that common within the market, obviously, if I only have one that's a converted garage. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you have a two-story listing, let's say, your only evidence of the square footage is from, it was appraised, from our, off the county records from the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's two-story, you guys finding more problems with the square footage being off?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said earlier, looking at the garage is always an easy indicator to me. But even an upstairs, say you see on the county, it's just a big rectangle. But you walk up the stairs and you're like, okay, there's a cutout, at the front door, because you can see down, down below into the front door. Clearly, this, isn't the same shape. So again, and then also maybe they didn't add the stairway, because there were times throughout the years where they didn't add the stairway. We add the stairway now. So that could be 100 something feet. So that's money for you guys. Yeah.
Crystal?
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you answered this. I stepped
No.
in a couple of times, but what about like pools and
Oh, so fun.
outdoor like kitchens
Yeah.
and stuff like that? What is our best way to comp those? Like, especially if no one else in the neighborhood has them, or there's only like one other.
I mean, if you only have one other, obviously go to other competing neighborhoods, even if they're not right there. I mean, I live in Edmond, so to me, that's why I'm going to use this reference. I feel like that there's easy areas that you can find that are competing that might have a pool. I'm going to go find, people that want a pool, they want the pool. They're not necessarily concerned about where it's at, So I would probably just show like, okay, like I recently sold my house and it had a pool. And so the way that I comped it, because the girl had, no idea what to do with my house. And so I was like, here's my idea of what I would say homes with pools are, and then homes right here in my neighborhood. You do your thing. And so, which was hard for her because she thought, oh, I should do it. Yeah, just you need to go out further. And a pool doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever. It may be variances. You may see, okay, my subject has a pool. It's a fiberglass pool, insert, sure. And then I've got, number one, and it has a concrete in-ground pool with a waterfall and a slide and a spa. Are those the same? Probably not. So, I'm gonna make a downward adjustment on that one that is superior to mine. So you might be like, well, why? It has a pool. It has a pool. Just always kind of look at the photos and see, what kind of pool does it have? What kind of outdoor scapes does it have? I see outdoor kitchens a lot because you mentioned that. And it might just be that, one person has a sink, a green egg, all the things. And that probably was pretty pricey to put in. And I might give that more value than somebody that has just the grill. And they call that an outdoor kitchen. I'm like, so I just relabel it and I just say outdoor grill, there's always varying levels of, you know.
I've heard like when I have one, I was
Yeah.
I was kind of unsure of how to comp it, and I had asked someone else, and they were like, "Well, I add X amount of dollars when I don't have anybody to compare it to," and she told me like 20,000. I was like, okay. I mean, I had no idea, so that's why I was curious.
I try to stay away from that, and you know, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, sometimes we have to pull things out of our hat. Sometimes, like, or just we don't know how are we gonna make this work. We feel like the value is there, and how are we gonna do it? You know, so we may have to do that, but typically we try not to do that. It would be just trying to find those like homes. Yeah. What's your name again?
How do you navigate situations? Because this is what I've had. I do a lot of new construction stuff.
Okay.
And I ran into a lot of issues, especially with Tabor, not to throw them on the bus, but they
That's okay.
have a lot of homes.
Yes, they do.
And so you have a client that does a custom build and they splurge and spend a lot of money. And the problem is there are comps out there, but the problem is that the builder didn't put any photos. And so I've had appraisers come back and they said, well, we would use that as a comp, but since they didn't upload any photos, I
Oh,
have
yeah.
to verify. I can't go in the house.
Right.
So they X out those comps. And
Yeah.
they didn't take photos because it was a custom build and it was already sold. And
Yeah.
so now the good comps from the neighborhood are gone, and then my client's upset because they got to come out of pocket.
So I think, you know, the way that you guys could handle this just in your own transactions, if you have that listing and when it closes, you know, say yours was the custom construction, do everybody a favor because it helps your peers out, it helps us out. I think that there's like a place for realtor, not the realtor remarks, but at the closer to the bottom, I feel like I've seen like separate from what the updates are of the house. I don't have an MLS listing in front of me, so I don't remember what section exactly that is. But you might even say like, hey, this house, you know, sold for, you know, whatever. It was a custom. It had XXX in there. You know, you might just put in there. It could be, I see that. I look for it. And that being said, even if you have a house that sold for far under or whatever it is, if it was atypical for the market, put in there why. Why? Because when I'm looking at the data and I'm like, okay, well, I've got this wide range, what the heck? I can't tell, like it looks like they remodeled it and it looks nice. Why did it sell for so much less? But it was on the market for 300 days and it sold for 20% less than the list price with several price drops, but it just doesn't seem like, why? You know, you may put in there like, hey, actually there was some foundation issues that were unknown. Then in the future, I can stay away from that comp because I can actually say, I don't have to call you and ask you why and chase you down because most of the time you guys don't answer the phone anyways. And so, you know, just writing in those remarks, did you have one of those sheets up that I could see? So yeah, this one, I see it right here when the, no, it's all right. I've seen it right, where'd it go? Right here.
Yeah, realtor.
Yeah, okay, is that okay, I always thought the realtor remarks was above. So that section is where, because it's separate, I catch it, because not everybody places something there. So just put in there. You know, a lot of times you might see custom for comps only. And I recently, yesterday, I was looking at some comps and somebody put something in there and it was such an outlier for the neighborhood. And I thought, well, why in the world? Like it was so low. And somebody put it in there and they were like, for comp purposes only. And I'm like, why? You just ruined it for their numbers. Well, it doesn't help us when we see that, you know, it doesn't help. So put in there also, you may say for comp purposes, but put in there like it was actually, yeah.
Is that the only place that you'll take information like that?
No, I read this. I read this, and but also, you know, it can get lost up there.
Have to be in the MLS or like what if I just told you?
Are you going to call us, like, you know, how are we going to know that? You know, how are you going to know that we're going to use it? And then, you know, it would be easiest if it were on there, or if you just want to put it in a supplement, you know, write a document, throw it in the supplement, just somewhere that we can see that information is helpful. because we're all trying to work together. Like, nobody's out to get anybody. We want to put the best data that we can in our reports. So, you know, but we only have the information that we have. So,
Do you put, find some seller concessions?
oh yes, this
How
one.
much, so this is new construction.
Okay.
Seller concessions, 10,000.
Okay.
How does that affect this? Do you mark 10,000 off, do you adjust it by 10,000?
So on this one, I'm not exactly sure. You know, that appraiser is
I mean,
different
sorry,
than
not
me.
this one, but
Yeah.
on this page.
On this page.
Do you
So
account for the $10,000 concession on this page?
yeah, so they're gonna put, you know, here's they had a conventional loan. Here was $10,000 in concessions. This one had no concessions, and this one had concessions. And they may have just thought that, hey, it's typical not to have concessions, so we're gonna remove this. But if you go back and you might look at the original list price of $300,000, was the original list price $290, and they had $10,000 in concessions to sell the property, so it sold for $300. I might remove that $10,000 because really that inflated the price.
So here's the, so it's listed at 294. Yeah, so they went up
Yes,
6,000.
that's probably why they did that. I probably would have just adjusted it up to the point of the difference between the list price and the actual sale price.
So they adjusted it.
They adjusted it 10. I probably wouldn't, because I think, you know, whatever the difference is there, you're still within that typical range, which is usually 0 to 3%, but then you have your markets like Midwest City or Del City that may go up to 6%. So I think you just have to decide what, you know, looking at all the other comps, what is typical for that neighborhood. And I will adjust if it's over what the predominant sales are. I will remove that from, you know, so take that into account too. You know, look at those concessions, look at what that original list price was, and even if it wasn't very much, you know, even if it was only $3,000, I'm still going to go, well, that inflated the price. You're inflating the comps in the neighborhood. So yeah.
What about days on market? I had on my Midwest City listing,
Mhm.
I got called out, they mentioned, I don't remember exactly vaguely what it said, but it said that the market wasn't able to absorb it because it was on the market for so long, it was on the market, taken off the market, because it was a beautiful home, it was just so weird. They had the kitchen in the front, and in Midwest City, there was like an outlier floor plan.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to, my clients loved it, it was perfect. Well,
Uh-huh.
kids playing in the front yard, but
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't really change the value of the home necessarily, because somebody like the floor plan, they called it out because it sat there for so long.
And I probably would too. I would definitely analyze the property as a whole. Like, how many price reductions did you make? How was it overpriced for the market, or was it, you know? And I'm probably going to call you and I'm going to say, hey, why was it listed at this? Did the seller want that? Did you want that? Was that what the comps were, you know, 8 months ago? And when you tried to price this, you know, maybe, because now I'm looking at stuff that's right now, trying to pull from more recent data. Yeah, so is that helpful? Yeah.
Going back to the pool really quick,
Mhm.
what's the best way to explain that to a seller who's like, I spent $120,000 putting this in, I did this, we did that, you know, no, it doesn't really matter, but like, what's a good way to explain it, maybe to them?
Cost is not a function of value.
Yes.
That's the best way. Cost is not a function of value, because you may consider something so valuable, but does the next person? They may just want a pool. Did they care that you spent, you know, to get the fun bottom, you know, black bottom, and the waterfall and the grotto and all the things? Like, that's really cool, but also I could have just had a pool, you know. So that was it was good for that person who owned it, but that doesn't mean that that's what everybody's looking for. So, you know, and that happens in a luxury market too. And so that's why we tend to not make the adjustments, because it's not a function of value. It's usually like, I have to have this. I don't really care what anyone thinks about how much I'm spending on this. That doesn't mean it's worth it. Yeah.
I have a question. I have one on land and it's luxury, all with the house on it, 5 or 6 acres, but all the comps tend to have like a pool.
Yeah.
You know, what a shop maybe. How
Okay.
so like I know you said it's
Yeah.
on the quality of those, but I'm having a hard time finding comps for it without those things.
Without them.
Yes.
Ooh, that's fun. Do you where is it at?
Edmond.
Oh, okay. Like in Logan County or like in a more rural part or?
No, it's off Coffee Creek.
Oh, okay. Well, you're stumping me. I don't know. I would have to actually look at that. But I would just probably go further out. And even if it's a competing market like Deer Creek, you know, because if you're on land, you're obviously going to have, you know, you're not in a cookie cutter neighborhood probably. I would probably go out to areas that have land and, you know, competing markets. So I would consider Deer Creek that, or even.
Deer Creek or Edmond would probably be the best.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Anything else?
Basements. Some appraisers say you can't count the footage at all, and some people do
Yeah.
if it's finished consistently with the rest of the house. Can you include
Yeah.
that footage if it's below ground?
No. I mean, we can. So again, we've got, this is your above grade room count and square footage right here. And then we've got the basement right under. So on listings, you might see this a lot in like Crown Heights, in that area. And you all usually put the total square footage and you'll put appraisal square footage, you know, and you'll put the upper and lower. And I think that appeals to buyers. But, you know, for us, it's a little more difficult. I suggest you can put all of that square footage in your listing as such, like, you know, 3,000 feet. And then in the remarks, first thing, big bold letters, you know, above grade this, below grade this, because it makes my job so much easier. And those are always the most time consuming reports for us. So usually it doesn't cost as much to build up versus out. So we don't always adjust that below grade at the same rate as we might adjust the above grade, but you have your outlier ones that I'm like, oh gosh, you know, this, it feels so worth it, and it was multiple offers, and it was, you know, super nice. So I might, you know, not discount it as much as I normally would, but usually they're not as nice in this area that, you know, they have a damp smell or they have, you know, all of that. But they do get credit, maybe just not at the same rate.
Yeah. If it's like one of those really outlier, like Crown Heights basements, it's like very high,
Yeah.
It's got windows and all that sort of thing, is there a chance that you'll give that close to like a 1-to-1?
I have done that before. I'm not gonna lie, I have done that. Not always, but it just depends on the level of the finish, you know. And like I said, did the market react well to it? Did it sell quickly?
What's
you know.
what's more regular consideration for like a finished basement that's not, you know, that's okay, but
Conservatively,
not,
I might go half. Like
half?
whatever I adjust this at, I might go half down here.
Half of that.
Half of that.
Okay.
Yeah, a quarter of the total. Yes.
The basement's worth a 25% of the
Yeah,
above.
possibly. Yeah, again, just depending on what that finish feels like.
As a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
What if it's a walkout basement with windows?
Yeah.
So it's a sloping lot.
Mhm.
Front is just above grade, but then the back slopes down, and then you have a full walkout with nice windows, nice
Mhm.
light coming in. How do you adjust that?
Yeah, I would probably be more likely to adjust on the higher end of that range versus the lower end. But unfortunately, if anything is 5 inches below the dirt, we're supposed to count it as basement. Now, sometimes I'm like, I'm just not going to do it. Yes. Yeah, I was a full walkout. I would probably tend to, and it depends on the market, obviously, but it sounds like it's a nice property. So I would think that they would adjust at a higher rate versus, it's not like it's a rule that we have to do these things.
So is it like half, or is it?
Well, it would be whatever I adjusted the above grade for, I would probably adjust the below grade at the same rate on that. If it was nice and it had the walkout and it felt like open space, I would probably adjust it at the same. It just would be on that second line. It would be separate from the above grade. Anyone else? We're good?
I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
I think I kind of joked about this earlier. So this is why I think it's so valuable for people to look at this. Almost 99.9% of what realtors do to comp a house is look at price per square foot. That is 10% of what appraisers use. It's 99% of what we use and 10% of what appraisers use. Somehow we are always close, but it's not the best thing. Especially if there's really good comps, you can use price per square foot because there's right here, there's no adjustments. This was, what was that, 10 square feet, 11 square feet off, and very, very similar condition and everything. So that's when you can use price per square foot really well. But if it's more than 100 feet bigger or smaller or has new windows versus one doesn't or an extra bath or anything at all, price per square foot is adjusted at half the value that we're giving it as an agent, and then there's other things pulling down on it. So that's, unless it's within 50 square feet of your comp, same bed, same bath, same decade built, then you can't just do a price per square foot analysis of it. Again, we all do, and we always kind of get to the same destination somehow, but there's a lot more to the appraisal process.
And I do consider, I mean, I will look at that and go, okay, what was my final opinion of value? Did my opinion of value come in at 140 a square foot because these adjusted down so much? Probably it shouldn't, because like what the predominant sales say that, so I should probably relook at my data. You know, I mean, I do consider it. Yeah, just maybe not the same way that you guys might consider it. Yeah. And then also just always look at photos. Like, just because these houses sold for 170 a foot and everything else is, you know, 150, look at the photos and see, like, is that really the same as your property? If so, awesome. You know, those are relevant, but maybe they're not, so.
If I was gonna dispute a appraisal that came in low and every net adjustment's like, if they're really low, if the net adjustments are really low, that would mean the comps are really similar.
But don't worry about it. Just don't worry about that.
Well, that's what, like, how would I identify which comp is bad and which comp I should replace with a comp that I want? Does that make sense?
Yes.
As an
Yes.
owner of a home, how would which one would I dispute on here to try to replace? The 18% adjustment? Because it's just coming too far off?
Probably, you know, but this one's just, this appraisal's not as easy to say this about, but I see what you're saying. I wouldn't worry about these net and gross adjustments. I would look at it like, hey, you know, did you know something about that house? Oh, Sally down the street said that, you know, her husband just, you know, sold that really quickly because they were getting a divorce, you know, and they wanted out of it, or they knew that, you know, something was going to be built behind them and they just wanted out. So if you guys can find out insight from your sellers and know, hey, this is what's happening. Like, it's good information, because when I call you, I'm gonna ask you, like, or when I meet you at the property, you can meet us and tell us these things, like, hey, I've got this CMA, but also this is what happened here and here, and I'll put that in my report. And so there's a reason why I'm not gonna use that. It may look like it's the best comparable, but I'm not going to use it. So, yeah. And also just always communicating with us. We're not scary. Some of us are. Some of us aren't. But you can talk to us, so give us a call.
That was one thing we talked about a while back. Is it annoying to you or helpful to you if someone brings their own comps, their own list of updates and all those things? Is that?
No, I appreciate that, especially whenever you are at the top of the market. Like, why wouldn't you? You're selling that property. Yeah. You know, you need to sell it to us. It doesn't stop whenever you have a contract. Yeah. You're selling it to us too. So bring that, but in the same token, you know, just let the appraiser do their job while they're there, you know, and they can't be steered towards, you know, well, this is what you need to use because this is what I think is best. You know, you might just say, hey, could you call me if you run into any issues? Can you give me a call first so I could maybe relook at this? Or, you know, just keep that communication open. I will always call you if I'm going to be under the contract value. I'm going to call you and I'm just going to let you know. Like, hey, this is where I'm at. What do you have? That way I can get in front of a reconsideration of value, and I can go through in my report, like when you say, these are the comps that I have, then I'll say, okay, I'm gonna throw that in as to the reason why or why I did not use them, and that I spoke to you. And that at least I analyzed it and I considered it. So, you know, yeah, just, I'll reach out to you, but just keep that communication open. The appraiser is your friend. You need to be the appraiser's friend too, yeah.
I feel like most appraisers aren't like that.
Yeah.
How rude, how rude. They're grumpy, right? They're overworked, they're a little grumpy. But I'm not, you can call me.
Most of them are. A lot of times we don't get to pick you, you know.
I know, it's too bad you don't get to pick me, but you can pick me for measuring and for, you know, a pre-listing appraisal.
Cost to just measure.
It depends on if it's like under 3,000 feet, I'll just charge $150, and then it might go up from there if it's larger, quite a bit larger. So, yeah.
How do you feel about like people that aren't sure where, like sellers that aren't sure where to price, having an appraisal done before? I know, what are your?
I do it all the time.
How close is that usually? Like, let's say you put on the market, sell it in a month, and are the appraisals gonna be pretty similar most of the time?
As to what, like what it sells for versus what I said it was valued at? It depends. I mean, you know, it's a shot in the dark. You know, sometimes when I'm getting those, they're usually because they're not easy to price. And that doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, it's so easy, you just don't know what you're doing. No, it's really hard. I just turned one in, you know, the other day, and I'm like, you know, I hope there was nothing to work with. And I hope that somebody sees it as valuable as I did, but I was being conservative. So, you know, I'm not likely to overvalue something, you know, in that regard, just to be more conservative. But usually it's good, because if you have, say you have somebody come in and buy the property for what you listed it for, what I said it was worth, and another appraiser comes in, he's from out of town and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's thrown all these comps in that don't really seem all that relevant, and he didn't make any adjustments, and yours was really updated and has all these great amenities, and he just kind of was like, I don't care. You could actually take that to the lender and be like, hey, look, we have this to back it up. We got a pre-listing appraisal. We did our homework here. They might meet somewhere in the middle. So they're gonna reach out to that appraiser and say, hey, why didn't you use these comps? Or why, you know, why did you consider this? Or they might throw it out altogether and they might get a new appraiser. So it's not a bad idea whenever you're having a difficult property. Yeah.
How long would you say the time frame should be if you recommend someone to get an appraisal before versus when you're gonna list it?
Cool. Yeah. When it's busier, I would say probably like a month is awesome. 3 weeks it might take us. I know that seems like a long time from the time we go out and inspect a property, but we're juggling deadlines all over the place that were way before you called us. And so, you know, I kind of work in order of whatever I've got due. And sometimes I just need, if it's hard, I have to go back and look at it day after day after day, and I need to sleep on it. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah. So it doesn't just pop out of nowhere. So I think 3 weeks is really acceptable. 2 tops. I wouldn't think that they could turn it out in a week most of the time. Yeah.
And a silly question.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, is like on your side, you know, we see homes, we're like, oh, I've been to that neighborhood, been to that neighborhood. Like as you're going through your orders, you're ever like, oh, I already have some comps in mind for this house. Like you're looking. Like,
Sometimes.
how's it like? You're like, oh, I have 3 or 4 homes in the same neighborhood.
Sometimes. Well, I'm so happy whenever I get, you know, especially like, oh yeah, it's great, it's great. A new construction neighborhood, and I'm like, ooh, I got that. But you know, I'll put new sales in, because if they're selling all over the place, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna update the most recent sales. I'm not just cloning a report and throwing it out there, you know. So, Yeah, I do. I love whenever I know them for sure. I like to know what I'm walking into. I don't like whenever there's only one photo and I'm walking into the house and I'm like, oh, I would have said no. But yeah. Did you have your hand? Yeah.
Yeah, this guy likes to leave a couple crisp hondos on the sink in the kitchen, saying, those are for you as long as the value comes in, right? Is that?
Say that again. Me what?
You take bribes.
I was like,
He wants to know if you take bribes.
yes, no, no. Unfortunately, I can't. But that would be awesome if I could. Oh my gosh, that would be nice if we could. Sorry.
What is your cost of a full appraisal, like for pre-listing?
So it would really depend on the complexity, where it's at, from my proximity, like how, it depends. It might run from 600 on just a private, because usually those are time consuming, and that's kind of what we would get with a lender, versus, you know, if it's a divorce appraisal, I might charge 1,500. So.
Because they're gonna dig into it a lot more. Right?
Yes, they dig, because we run the risk of going to court and all the things. Yeah. So. Uh huh.
So when, like, as far as like talking with sellers about updates to do,
Uh huh.
what updates do you think are the most valuable to recommend as far as like carpet and flooring, or
Yeah,
what do you
that's
think
good.
are-
Well, always kitchen and bathrooms, great. Like even if it's just the countertops, you know, they've got Formica countertops, and you're gonna throw in some granite countertops. Kitchen and bathrooms. Flooring is obviously good. I don't, you know, I do consider it. So I think that those are good. And then, you know, I think we.
see a difference with like, you know, laminate or vinyl versus carpet, that it would maybe sell quicker, less days on market?
Possibly. If you're gonna put like laminate flooring in a $1 million house, probably not. You know, but if you're gonna put laminate in that Midwest city house, they're gonna be like, this is awesome. We have no carpet, and this is durable, and we love it. So it depends on, you know, you want to do market specific things. Try to stay within that trend of wherever you're at. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it at your discretion, to, if you have a list of appraisal required repairs, to go back out versus just having photos and invoices like sent in?
So sometimes, no, we should go out. We do. We should go out. Sometimes I get the order for the final because the mortgage dude forgot to order it, and they're like, hey, it's out in Choctaw and I need this tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm already booked, sorry. You know, I may call you and be like, hey, did the guy give photos? Like, I know you, I don't want to hold up your closing, and if I can actually tell, you know, if you're not giving me just a close-up of what I asked for, and you're giving me a broad range and a close-up, then I might take it. You know, we shouldn't, but sometimes we have to. You know, it depends. So if it's for like like a foundation or something, I can't always actually see that the foundation was repaired. Maybe there was, you know, me requiring that somebody goes out and fix anything that would affect the structural integrity, and I can't always tell because you have to cosmetically fix that as well. There may still be the crack there, but it's fixed. I may just say, hey, shoot me the paperwork, because I would always ask that. Shoot me the paperwork, I'm gonna put that in my report, and I don't need to go out. So I think I wouldn't typically do it unless it was a time crunch and I didn't want to hold you guys up. I would usually go back. That's what we're supposed to do. Yeah.
Are there reviews done of like potentially appraisers that are like known for going back out all three? Like how many times they go out on all of their appraisals?
So what do you mean by that?
There's one, a rural one that is like, she's known for dinging things until she goes out the maximum, like two additional times
Oh,
to get paid.
that's nuts. I don't have the time for that. I'd rather, if I'm like, oh, I gotta go back out, I don't want to, it's not worth it. But sometimes we'll go back and I'm like, are you serious? Like, I put that in the photos. I had that recently and I had to ask to go back out, but I was working with the buyer's agent at that point. They sent me the photo. I said, well, what did they show you that needed to be fixed? And she goes, well, the lender just sent me a couple screenshots, and they didn't give her all the information that she needed. And so I thought, well, to the listing agent, I guess that would be it. She only sent just a couple of screenshots and didn't give the listing agent the full list of photos, so they didn't even know, because most of the time you guys are not giving the listing agent the appraisal report. You guys are holding on to that. So just making sure that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, what are their expectations. Especially if you have a big list of them, maybe just calling the listing agent and saying, hey, like, I just want to go over this and make sure that these things are going to be done, so we can minimize somebody having to go back out and charge my buyer again and again and again. But I don't think anything, that's kind of weird. And she just must not have anything else to do. So. Anybody else? Okay. I don't have anything else for you, but you're welcome. You're welcome.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And you guys can call me anytime.
Yeah,
I don't know if you.
I'll post
Yeah.
your information if anyone has needs.
Yeah.
needs.
Shoot me a text first. Usually I'm, out and about, so I'll try to get to you as soon as I can, but I'm always happy to help, because if I help you better understand, you're better inputting data, you're better pricing. Yeah, it makes my life easier. So, yeah, it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
If you haven't signed the sign-in sheet, please go ahead and